seems insane to me that people are mad that the Pope is calling for peace.
You're fighting the Pope? Do you know who his boss is?
Former Trump supporters who are not happy with him.
I support this president and his administration, but I cannot support him posting himself as Jesus.
Support for Donald Trump with Catholics has dropped below 50% for the first time ever.
That's what we're hearing from people, including people of faith. Che, I just posed a question to you. What should the democracy movement do with these folks who now have more beef with Trump?
Yeah, I don't want to be too critical of Democrats, but they could actually learn a lot from the Pope, because the Pope simply gave a morally clear, unambiguous answer about the war. The war is wrong. It is a moral wrong. It is a atrocity. We must choose peace. It is in clear, simple, moral terms. There was no discussion about, does the president have a plan for Iran? How does this deal with our oil supply chains, and the relationship with Israel and the relationship with the Gulf states and the other places in the Middle East? There was no technical speak. It was clear, unambiguous, moral language of the kind that has been lacking, I think, on the part of a lot of Democrats. I think they should take a lesson from the Pope, and I think that is the real way for the democracy movement to move forward.
Professor?
Well, I just read a book called How to Build a Democracy. So I would take lessons from Fannie Lou Hamer and some of the civil rights leaders where they found points of commonality. And so we are at dire straits when it comes to saving this democracy. So if we can find a point of connection and move on from there, we don't have to be best friends forever. We actually don't have to be in coalition forever. But for this moment, to move this country forward, we can be in coalition. And I think that if we're clear about that, we can then sort of work on this particular issue and then move forward. But I have found in studying the civil rights movement, once people start working together on one particular issue, you then find that there's a second issue that you might be able to find some sort of common ground, and maybe even a third issue that you can find some common ground. And so there can be a snowballing of commonality. And I do think that with this particular president who has made his money and his bones on being divisive and making sure Americans don't actually see themselves and their histories in one another, I don't see why we can't actually start that building process. I'm a treasurer, a trustee of the Tenement Museum, and that's the whole point, for us to see our immigration stories and our migration stories as points of conversation so we can actually make this country better, which is clearly something that the president does not want us to do.